My creepy coworker refuses to stop stalking me. HR and cops involved. I knew working late was a mistake the moment I stepped into the empty parking garage. As I hurried toward my car, footsteps echoed behind me. My stomach clenched. It was nearly 9 p.m. Everyone else had left work hours ago. I glanced over my shoulder, and there he was. Bryce, my coworker, leaning against my car door with a strange grin on his face. "Waiting for someone?" he said casually, as if this were a normal chat by the water cooler. My heart started hammering. Bryce is the last person I wanted to be alone with, especially in a dark garage. I'm just heading home," I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady. I didn't want him to know how scared I was. He chuckled, a low echo that bounced off the concrete walls. I thought I'd say goodnight. He pushed off my car and took a step toward me. I instinctively stepped back, my grip tightening on my keys. This is my reality now, clutching keys like a weapon because a coworker has me terrified. I never thought my life would turn into some kind of thriller movie. I need to backtrack and explain how it got to this point, because I'm still struggling to process it. For context, I'm a 26-year-old woman working at a small marketing firm. I've been there for 3 years, and until recently, I loved my job. I got along with everyone. Except now I realize I was completely wrong about one of my colleagues. Let's call him Bryce, 30M. Bryce joined the company a year ago. At first, he seemed just a little awkward and overeager. He'd find excuses to stop by my desk often, but I didn't think much of it. I'm a friendly person, and our office is relatively social. He started off by complimenting my work, asking harmless questions about my weekend, that sort of thing. I thought he was just trying to be friends or settle in. Over the next few months, his behavior escalated in subtle ways. He'd stand a bit too close when talking to me, or his hand would accidentally brush my shoulder when he laughed. Little things that gave me a gut feeling something was off, but nothing I felt I could formally complain about. I'd respond by creating distance, physically stepping back, or giving short, polite answers and turning back to my work. I hoped he'd get the hint. He didn't. If anything, he mistook my politeness for encouragement. One day after work, a group of us went out for drinks to celebrate a project completion. When most of our coworkers had left, it ended up just me and Bryce waiting for our Ubers outside the bar. That's when he made his first outright move. He told me I was the most beautiful woman in the company, and that he'd been wanting to ask me out for months. I was caught completely off guard and remember stammering something like, "I'm sorry, I don't see you that way." I even lied that I was kind of dating someone. I wasn't, but I panicked. His face went from hopeful to stone cold in an instant. He asked, "Why not? We get along so well." I muttered something about valuing our work relationship and hopped into my Uber literally as it pulled up. The interaction left me feeling uneasy, but I also felt guilty, like I'd been rude or misled him, even though I tried to be clear. After that rejection, things got weird. At work, Bryce initially acted like nothing happened, which honestly relieved me. I thought maybe he could brush off the embarrassment and we'd just go back to cordial coworker terms. But a week later, I started noticing him staring at me during meetings. Not just a glance, full-on, unblinking stares. When I'd meet his eyes, he'd give this sad sort of smile, like I'd hurt him. He also began texting me outside of work hours. We had exchanged numbers earlier for a team project, big mistake in hindsight. The texts were things like, "Hey, saw this funny meme. Made me think of you," or "Hope you had a good night." I would either not respond or keep it very short. I even told him once, "Please keep it professional and only message me about work." He replied, "Wow, okay. Sorry for caring." Then immediately followed with, "Most people would be flattered." I didn't respond. I decided to inform my direct manager about the unwanted texting without officially escalating to HR yet. My manager is an older man who seemed a bit uncomfortable, but told me he'd have a discreet word with Bryce to remind him about professional boundaries. I appreciated that, except it apparently didn't help. If anything, it made things worse. Bryce confronted me after that, cornering me in the break room when no one else was around. He wasn't physically touching me, but he stood in the doorway, effectively trapping me. He asked, "Why did you tell I was harassing you?" His tone was eerily calm, but his eyes were angry. I stayed as composed as I could and said, "Because the messages were not about work and they made me uncomfortable. I asked you to stop, and you didn't." He suddenly switched to a wounded look, saying he was just being friendly and I had misunderstood him. He said, "You're making me out to be some creep when all I've ever been is nice to you." I told him that him cornering me right now was not nice or appropriate either, and I tried to walk past him. He blocked my way for a second, breathing heavily, then stepped aside. I rushed back to my desk shaken. I wish I had just marched to HR right then, but I second-guessed myself. He hadn't touched me. Maybe I was overreacting? Maybe after confronting me, he'd finally back off? For a short while, it seemed he did. He gave me space for maybe a couple of weeks. But I later realized he was probably just recalibrating. The next phase was more covert. He started showing up in places outside of work. I'd run to the grocery store and suddenly get a text. Saw you at Trader Joe's. You should try the mochi ice cream, smiley face. No sign of him in the store, but clearly he'd been there, watching. On weekends, I'd go out with friends, then get an Instagram DM from him. A screenshot of a song on Spotify he wanted to recommend, posted at a time that indicated he was likely sitting alone on a Saturday night thinking of me. It was unsettling, but still somewhat deniable. Like, how do you report? I suspect my coworker is coincidentally shopping where I shop and sending vague messages afterwards. Things escalated about 2 months ago. I noticed small coincidences at work that made my paranoia spike. One morning, I logged onto my computer to find an email I swore I saved as draft had been sent out to a client with several errors in it. I was baffled because I'm meticulous. Later, I discovered the email had been sent at 11 p.m. the night before, a time I wasn't even in the office. I have no proof, but I know it wasn't me. IT confirmed my account was logged in at that time from one of the office terminals. Only a few people have after-hours access. Bryce is one of them. I wouldn't put it past him to send a sabotaged email from my account to make me look bad at work. I started feeling like I was going crazy, doubting everything. Maybe I was misplacing blame. But then came the incident that finally pushed me to HR for real. About a month ago, I stayed late, working on that big project I mentioned. I was one of the last in the office. I went to the restroom down the hall, and when I came back, I nearly jumped out of my skin. Bryce was standing by my desk, apparently waiting. He acted surprised to see me, which was odd since obviously he knew I was there. He mumbled something about needing a file from the cabinet near my desk, which made no sense. He works in a different department, and that cabinet just has marketing materials. I had this intense gut feeling that he had been doing something on my computer or snooping through my stuff. After he left, awkwardly, I immediately checked my computer. Sure enough, my screen, which I'd locked, showed an error message like someone had tried and failed to log in, incorrect password attempt. That was it for me. The next morning, I went straight to HR and filed a formal complaint. I laid out everything: the unwanted texts, the break room confrontation, the stalking vibes, and the suspected sabotage. I was shaking as I told the HR rep, because it felt like once I said it out loud, it became real. To their credit, HR took it seriously, or at least, they acted like they did. They said they would interview Bryce and any other relevant parties. I also showed them some of the texts and DMs I'd saved. The HR rep frowned and said, "This is unacceptable, we'll address this." I felt a wave of relief, thinking, finally, someone is going to help me. If only it were that simple. HR spoke with Bryce that very day. I don't know what he told them exactly, but the fallout has been a nightmare. He must have spun some story, because the next thing I know, I'm called into a meeting with HR and my manager, and Bryce isn't present. They had this cautious tone, asking if I was sure I hadn't perhaps encouraged a personal relationship at some point. They mentioned Bryce asserted that we had a consensual friendship that he feared I was now mischaracterizing. Consensual friendship? I was livid. I told them, point blank, that was not true and reminded them of the evidence I provided. They said they'd consider all information and in the meantime wanted to separate our workspaces and mediate a professional solution. I left that meeting feeling utterly deflated. It felt like they were treating it as a mutual conflict, some he said, she said thing, rather than an issue of my safety. Still, they did move his desk to a different floor so he wasn't nearby, and I was temporarily allowed to work from home 2 days a week to have less contact. They also said something about giving him a verbal warning to respect boundaries. But essentially, he still had his job, and we still had to work together at times. For a couple of weeks, I tried to avoid him and hoped he'd keep his distance. However, I noticed him staring whenever I was in the office. He'd take the long way around just to pass by my desk before his move, or hover near the elevator when I arrived, just so we'd end up riding together in awkward silence. My anxiety was through the roof. I started dreading going to work, barely sleeping at night, jumping at every sound in my apartment. Then came last Friday, the day that changed everything again. I was working late, trying to finish that big project. Deadlines don't stop for personal drama. Most of the office had emptied out by 7 p.m. I kept telling myself Bryce had left at 5 like usual, so I should be safe. By 8:30, I was done and packed up. The office was silent as I walked to the elevator. When the elevator doors opened in the lobby, I saw through the glass doors that someone was lingering outside the building. My heart did a little flip-flop. It was dark, but I could make out the silhouette and posture. It was definitely Bryce, as if he was waiting for something or someone. Maybe he was just waiting for a ride. I hesitated. I should have called security right then, but foolishly, I decided to use a side exit from the lobby and loop around to avoid him. I quietly slipped out a side door and took a longer route to the parking garage next door, where employees park. I thought I'd been clever. Apparently, not clever enough. He must have seen me anyway, because as I neared my car, he appeared behind me, bringing us back to the start of my story. There I was, alone with Bryce in the dim garage, my back literally against my car. "You shouldn't be here," I said, trying to sound firm. "This area is for employees only." Yeah, dumb thing to say, but my mind was scrambling for a script. He smiled like this was all a game. "I was worried about you working so late. Thought you might like an escort to your car." I responded through gritted teeth that I didn't need any help and he should leave. He took another step closer. I backed up so far I pressed into my car door. He dropped the smile, and his face twisted with frustration. "You've been avoiding me," he said flatly. "HR is acting like I'm some criminal. Do you realize what you've done?" His voice was rising with anger. My mouth went dry. I just told them the truth. "You brought this on yourself." At that, he actually laughed. "Myself? You're the one who led me on, then lied about me." His eyes looked almost wild. I shouted, voice trembling. "I never led you on. I asked you to stop multiple times." My hands were shaking, fumbling for my phone in my pocket. He noticed, and in 2 quick strides, he was right in front of me. He grabbed my wrist tightly before I could dial anything. "Don't you dare," he hissed. I thought this was it, he was going to hurt me. All my senses were on fire. In a surge of adrenaline, I yanked my hand free and screamed, "Get the fuck away from me." I've never screamed like that in my life. My voice echoed sharply. That must have startled him, because he actually stepped back. I used that moment to dart around to the driver's side door, jump in, and slam the locks down. He slapped the hood of my car hard, but I didn't stick around. I started the engine and tore out of there, heart pounding out of my chest. In my rearview mirror, I saw him standing there, just watching me drive off. I burst into tears halfway home and pulled over to sob and calm down before I could even properly drive. It hit me that this man could very well have killed me or seriously hurt me, and nobody was there to help. And worse, a part of me still worried that reporting this would somehow backfire on me. When I got home, I immediately wrote an email to HR detailing the incident and left a shaky voicemail for the HR rep as well, since it was after hours. I barely slept all weekend, nervous he'd show up at my apartment. I triple-checked all my locks. I bought a mini door alarm and a pepper spray canister the next day. On Monday, HR finally got back to me. But instead of reassurance, I got hit with another betrayal. They told me they'd spoken to Bryce, who claimed I actually accosted him in the garage. He apparently spun some tale about me yelling and attacking him because I was angry he didn't reciprocate feelings. I couldn't believe it. Thankfully, I had included in my email that he grabbed my wrist, and I had a faint bruise as proof. They seemed skeptical of his story, but then they dropped a bombshell. There was no security camera footage in that section of the garage, of course. It was basically my word versus his about what happened. So what did HR do? They proposed that I work from home for the time being while they complete a thorough investigation. It's pretty clear they're afraid of a lawsuit from me or him or both and want to cover their bases. I agreed to work from home, honestly relieved to not have to see him in person for now. But I'm furious. I feel like I'm the one being pushed out and punished when I've done nothing wrong. Human Resources did advise that if I feel unsafe, I could also involve law enforcement. No shit. I went to the police station that evening and filed a report about the garage incident. But without concrete evidence or prior restraining orders, all they could do is take my statement. I'm looking into getting a restraining order, but I've been told it might be hard to get one unless he actually hurts me or makes a clear threat. Apparently, stalking cases are tough unless there's very explicit evidence. The officer gently advised me to stay alert and document everything. So here I am, working from home, looking over my shoulder 24/7, and feeling like the system is utterly failing me. My job is basically in limbo while HR investigates. I'm not even sure what that means. Are they going through our emails? Interviewing other coworkers? They won't tell me. All I know is I've used up most of my PTO because I'm too emotionally wrecked to concentrate on work anyway. I'm angry, scared, and drained. I have no idea what Bryce will do next. He's still employed, as far as I know. He's twisted the story to make himself the victim, and I fear this is far from over. I've started parking my car at a friend's garage and sleeping at that friend's place some nights, just in case. Maybe I'm paranoid, but after everything, I don't think any precaution is too much. I haven't seen Bryce in person since that night, and I pray it stays that way. But I also know he's not one to give up easily. How the hell do I handle this? Do I lawyer up? Do I blast the story on social media to pressure my company? I'm so tired. I just want my normal life back. Please, any advice or insight is welcome. I feel like I'm living a nightmare that I can't wake up from. End of original post. Update 1. Hi everyone. I'm so grateful and frankly overwhelmed by the responses to my original post. Your support and advice gave me courage. It's been about a week since I posted, and a lot has happened, some of it terrifying, but I'm still here. First, I took many of the steps you all suggested. I consulted an attorney and documented everything. I also installed a doorbell camera at my apartment. And thank God I did. 3 nights ago, around 1 a.m., the camera captured Bryce at my apartment door. Yes, he came to my home in the middle of the night. In the video, he stood right outside my door for about a minute. He leaned his ear against it, maybe trying to hear if I was inside, and even gently tested the doorknob. Thank God I had the deadbolt locked. He eventually left, but watching that footage made my skin crawl and my heart pound. I nearly got sick realizing he had actually come to where I live. I called the police immediately and showed them the video. That same day, I was granted a temporary restraining order against him. He was served with it, meaning he was legally ordered to stay away from me, my home, and my workplace. My company also finally took action. Once they learned about the TRO, they put Bryce on indefinite leave and then terminated his employment. They also formally banned him from the building. It's sad it took things going this far for them to act, but at least they did. For a brief moment, I felt a surge of relief, like I was regaining some control. But that feeling didn't last. 2 days after the TRO was served, I swung by my apartment. I had been too afraid to stay there. I was crashing at a friend's place. I brought my dad and a friend with me to grab more of my things. When we opened my front door, I immediately noticed something was wrong. There were rose petals on my living room floor. My stomach dropped. I cautiously walked to my bedroom, and there on my pillow was a single, freshly cut yellow rose. I cannot describe the sheer panic and violation I felt. I started shaking, and my friend literally had to steady me. We yelled to see if anyone else was there, but the apartment was empty, at least empty of him. Somehow, Bryce had broken in. Later we discovered he pried open my bathroom window via the fire escape. He left the rose on my pillow as a message. To me, it was clear. Even a restraining order wouldn't stop him from getting to me. We called the police immediately. They came, took photos, and collected the rose for evidence. There were obvious signs of forced entry at the window, so the police now had concrete proof of his violation. There's a warrant out for his arrest for violating the restraining order and breaking and entering. But as of right now, they haven't found him. He wasn't at his apartment or his usual hangouts. It's like he's gone to ground. I've left my apartment indefinitely. I grabbed whatever essentials I could. I'm staying with my parents a couple of hours away. I hate that I've essentially been driven out of my own home. It feels like I'm the one being punished. But I have to be safe. Honestly, I don't think I could ever sleep in that apartment again knowing he invaded it. I am beyond shaken. The restraining order, the police, none of it stopped him. If anything, it seems to have provoked him. That rose on my pillow was such a creepy, calculated gesture. It's hard to put into words how terrified I am. I barely sleep, I jump at every little sound, and I constantly feel like I'm looking over my shoulder. The police are searching for him actively now, and my lawyer is staying in close touch with them. My company, spooked by how serious this became, has been very accommodating. They're continuing to pay me while I take time off to deal with this. I think they're also keen on avoiding a lawsuit, and honestly, I have zero energy to even think about that right now. So at the moment, I'm as safe as I can be. I'm with my family, and we've beefed up security at my parents' house too, just in case. I carry pepper spray and a personal alarm everywhere. I've taken advice to vary my routines and not be alone if I can help it. Emotionally, I'm a wreck, but I'm also determined to see this through. I'm not going to let him drive me into hiding forever. The fact that he's currently on the run from law enforcement gives me some grim reassurance that when he's caught, there will be very real consequences. I'll update again when there's news, hopefully an arrest. For now, I just wanted to thank you and let you know that your advice possibly saved me from something even worse. You all made me feel less alone in this, and that gave me the push to get the restraining order and camera, which gave the police what they needed to take this seriously. Please stay safe out there. I never imagined I'd be living a real-life horror story like this. If something feels off with someone in your life, trust your instincts. End of Update 1. Update 2. Final. It's been a couple of months since my last update. Some developments have been positive, but I can't say this ordeal is neatly resolved. The good news, the police did catch Bryce. About a week after he broke into my apartment, they found him hiding in his car and arrested him. He was charged with multiple felonies, stalking, burglary, etc. At the hearing to extend my restraining order, The judge granted a permanent order against him. Seeing him in court, in handcuffs, gave me a sense of validation and relief. I thought maybe I could finally start to feel safe. I took the opportunity to rebuild my life. I moved out of my apartment. I couldn't bear to live there anymore, and relocated to a new city closer to family. I even left my job and found a new one where no one knew about my situation. With therapy and support from loved ones, I slowly began healing from the constant fear. For a little while, life was almost normal. Unfortunately, the legal process introduced new twists. A judge granted Bryce bail while he awaited trial, despite my objections. He was released with an ankle monitor and strict orders to stay away from me. I was uneasy, but I hoped the pending trial and monitoring device would keep him in line. Then I got the call I dreaded. Bryce cut off his ankle monitor and vanished. When I heard those words, I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. All the progress I'd made in feeling secure evaporated. There's now a warrant for his arrest, again, and he's officially a fugitive. The police don't know where he is. His trial can't even proceed until he's caught, so the entire justice process is in limbo. It's a cruel reminder that my sense of safety was fragile and conditional. I've doubled down on protecting myself. My new home is fortified with security measures, and I adopted a big dog for both companionship and security. The local police are aware of the situation, and my neighbors have his photo and know to call 911 if they see him. I carry pepper spray and a personal alarm everywhere. I hate that I have to live like this, but I've learned that being overcautious is necessary. I had hoped he might just disappear from my life for good. Maybe he has. But a few days ago, I received a chilling sign that suggests otherwise. An email appeared in my private inbox, the address only a few trusted people have. The sender's name was gibberish, with the subject line, "Thinking of you." The email contained only a single attachment, a photo of a yellow rose. That's his calling card. My heart pounded out of my chest when I saw it. I forwarded it to the police, but of course it's nearly impossible to trace. It could be a sick joke by someone who knows my story, but my gut says it's from Bryce. A little reminder that he's out there, and that I might never be truly rid of him. So that's where things stand. I have no idea where he is, whether he's far away or still somehow keeping tabs on me. It's a strange, exhausting way to live, trying to rebuild a normal life while also being prepared for the worst. I'm doing my best to stay on high alert while not letting fear completely paralyze me. I've regained some normalcy, a new job, a supportive network of family and friends, and ongoing therapy. But I won't pretend everything is okay. I still check over my shoulder constantly. I still wake up in the middle of the night panicking at the slightest noise. The trauma doesn't just vanish because he's out of sight.